We're broadcasting live today from AQ's Blog and Grill. This is kind of new and exciting for us. And talking about new and exciting, let's emphasize the exciting part. We have a guest here, Jennifer Moss. And Jennifer and I have known each other for a while, but we're still very young. And I will say that we're both having great hair days. We've taken care of ourselves, haven't we, Jennifer? And Jennifer is an expert on happiness and how do we create happiness and how do we give ourselves permission to be happy, whether it's in the workplace or other places. And she's written a great book that came out, I'm going to say 3 years ago, Jennifer?
Yeah, I guess maybe 4 now. Wow.
Okay. What was the title of that book?
Unlocking Happiness at Work.
There you go. She also is a writer, a columnist for the Harvard Business Review. She's a top-ranked speaker. She travels, or used to, temporarily at home. Used to do a lot of conference work. And she appears, I believe it's every Wednesday on CBC in the morning to talk about happiness. Is that pretty accurate, Jennifer?
Yep, you got it in a nutshell. That's fantastic.
And Jennifer is a mother of 3. Mm-hmm. And all 3 of those children are at home right now, aren't they?
They are at home. I've sent them outside to play so that they can be quiet. And my husband's on duty.
And look, everybody. Oh, Jim. Now there's another element of challenge when you're kind of quarantined. Or
we're a full house right now.
Jim's a great guy. Okay, so everybody's kind of wondering, how are we gonna best handle this situation we find ourselves in? There's maybe a lot of doubt, uncertainty. What are you doing, Jennifer? And what do you suggest that people do that are quarantined or physically separate or whatever, with or without children? What sort of things are you thinking about?
Well, the article that I wrote for HBR actually precipitated the book Unlocking Happiness at Work, and it was titled "Happiness is Not the Absence of Negative Emotions." And I think a lot of people resonated with that because we feel everything in times of stress, and the goal really around trying to find happiness is all about rebounding and resiliency. And sometimes, like right now, I feel like we're rebounding every 10 minutes or so. I mean, we get some news and then we have to reflect on that news, digest it, absorb it, and then move on. And so we're sort of getting inundated right now. So I think part of it has to be that there's not a high expectation of everyone to necessarily be thriving right now, but it's about us trying to figure out the ways to make the most of this situation as best as we can, forgive ourselves for the days that are really hard and sad, and then look at what serves us best. It doesn't serve us best to be panicking. It doesn't serve us best to be anxious. We have every right to feel that way, but it doesn't serve us very well. So it's about trying to figure out, okay, how can I navigate through this with less guilt, with allowing myself to feel the feelings that I need to, and then realizing that what serves me is to move on and be healthy and happy. And so I wanted to say that sort of right at the front, because I think when we have these conversations about happiness, people immediately think, well, I feel upset and you're not validating how I'm feeling. So I just want everyone to understand that you are going to feel a lot of things. And some people are in different stages of grief. I should say that as well. I mean,
yes. Yeah, I was reading a good article this morning on the fact that, and it was in the Harvard Business Review, the 6 stages of grief are very applicable right now to how we're feeling. And it helps us understand how we're feeling. And I think a lot of people get upset because they don't understand. So there hasn't been a label to it. There hasn't been a recognition that this is maybe what's happening.
I totally agree. I read that grief article and I really, it was so resonant with me I had written an article a few years ago about just handling grief in the workplace, and it's been bubbling back up in the last month, obviously, because people are realizing that there's different types of grief. I mean,
Right.
divorce, you feel grief, all the stages of grief. We sort of look at death as being the only time that we experience grief, but a loss of a job, which so many of us are going through right now, it's letting go of what our brain relied on to be normalcy, which is what
Right.
we love. We love that stasis. So right now, at the idea that we are feeling grief, it's absolutely it's exactly what we are all feeling. And so understanding and having people that are listening in are watching, understanding what those stages of grief are can make you feel really hopeful.
Mhm.
Grief isn't linear. Obviously, you have lots of different ups and downs, but you can kind of see, okay, this is where I'm at, or I'm sort of following this trajectory.
Yes.
And there are ways to solve for that grief feeling. So then people will feel like there is a way to get over how they're feeling or their stress and anxiety that they're experiencing.
Yeah. And maybe then it helps capsulize or put in some metrics into, yeah, I'm this stage in that sixth stage, or he's now got the seventh stage. But so it's okay, because I think a lot of us just sort of sit around and talk to ourselves, and the voice that we're hearing inside our heads may not be helpful. So how do we train that voice?
Well, one of the things that, which is interesting because right now it's essentially the world is grieving, which is an
Mhm.
interesting thing. So the idea that we're all in this together is very helpful for those people that do
Yes.
like to feel that they're part of the greater good. Right now we're isolated, and the thing with isolation when it causes depression and anxiety makes us feel really lonely, and it makes us actually feel quite alone. So we have to force ourselves to stop feeling that way and understand that if we are all grieving together, if we are all in this together, that can be really helpful. So
Right.
part of, when we actually practice altruism, which is essentially social distancing and social isolation, we are being altruistic because we're making sacrifices, especially people that are healthy. They are making sacrifices for the greater good. So if we
Right.
can look at that as an altruistic behavior, that makes us feel good. There's so much chemistry that goes through our body when we do something for another person or we do something for the world. Actually, researchers have quantified it that it's if we do something good for another person, the happiness lasts 3.5 times longer than if we did something for ourselves. So when we do that, we get the feedback, chemical feedback, hormones, all the things that make us feel good when we're eating chocolate or, kissing a loved one. That happens when we're being altruistic. So the more
Hmm.
that we can engage in those behaviors, the better it is for us, the more contagious it is because people see it modeled. And then we can feel less isolated. We feel more connected. So yeah, it's the best way for people that have been grieving too to get over their grief is to actually tackle the thing that created the grief in the first place. Um,
Okay.
that's why you see a lot of cancer survivors or people that have had people in their lives that have passed from cancer or disease. You see them doing the walks, you see them donating, you see them connecting to the cause. It's a way to get over the pain from the grief.
All right. So the whole notion of altruism can be brought down to a very small level where we can get started just being kinder to, well, first of all, ourselves, because this is a lot about self-care,
Yes,
but to do something for others is really easy to do. It doesn't cost us anything.
that's the nice thing.
Whether we know them personally or not, we can go online, we can thank them. My wife Susan is out there right now putting up a thank you sign for our garbage man. What?
So good.
Yeah, because they're out there, working. And I mean, that's a small thing. It's a handmade sign. I could have done a better job, frankly, but Susan's work is spot on.
Okay.
And, so this is a collective. It's not just about us as individuals. How we act as individuals in a collective could be a way forward. All right. So we talked about workplace happiness, and home happiness is coming up, but they're kind of the same thing right now, aren't they? We're working from home.
I mean, we still have a lot of people that are out there that are considered essential workers. So there are,
Yes.
still a lot of people out there in the workforce, and which I think is really great because we've not looked at these people as as our essential workforce. And I think this is the best thing that has ever happened to hourly paid employees, our part-time workforce. Obviously healthcare, we've looked at them as heroes in the past, but they really are behaving heroically now. So I do think that those frontline workers are hopefully we're going to see us looking at them differently. And I mean, I'm not saying you and I, we obviously get that, but there are, societally, we've looked at essential workforce differently. And so this is really good for us to go through, again, a silver line of this pandemic. But I do think that we're also challenged with remote employees. I mean, for example, my husband and I, Jim, most of you, watching will probably know Jim off, but he's the Smile CEO. He is doing the morning or the afternoon schooling, depending on what is needed. Right now, I'm busy, so he's managing the kids. We have to change the way we work. We have to, he's set up shop in the basement. So when I'm doing my calls, he's not disturbing me. So he's in his dungeon down there, but he's happy. We have to balance the fact that there are kids who have needs. So we have to create like needs in that they just are needy. They see mom and dad there. A 6-year-old wants their mom to see all their artwork and see all the things that they've done all day. So we've had to create strategies like creating their own boards where they choose their schedule for the day and they self-manage. And we have a lot of tips and tricks. We have people and parents sending us all the different types of materials that we can use for physical education. And I think that's been one of the best byproducts of all of this is how much we have found that social media and, social media about 3 weeks ago for us was, not my favorite thing. It was sucking my child's brains into the abyss. And now I'm so grateful for it because parent groups, my dance parents, because my kids are in dance, we're all connecting to each other. We're helping each other with tips and tricks. We're supporting each other. We're using social media to be able to talk about our fears. Right now, we're using social media to give people advice and guidance. So I think the remote piece is tough, but it's also lended itself to figuring out new ways to communicate and improve that communication, figuring out better ways of using it instead of looking as a time suck.
Yeah. So you've got 3 children. How old is Wyatt? Is he 15?
He's 12 going on 25. He's such a preteen right now.
He's a very mature 12.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And your littlest one is 6. She's a beautiful young lady. And how old is the middle? 12?
Olivia is 10. Yeah, 10.
Olivia's 10. Okay. So they must have questions for you and Jim on, Mom, Dad, what's really going on here? What should we be thinking? How should we be feeling? How do you respond to those kind of questions from your children?
Well, we've had an interesting situation in that we, Wyatt and I, because he was playing Billy Elliot, we were in Halifax and we had moved out there, he and I, before the family was to arrive. So when we arrived, Wyatt started training and we were sort of feeling nervous, but just so optimistic that we were going to figure this whole COVID-19 thing out and it would be fine. Jim and the kids and the girls arrived, and the next day, literally, they arrived at 11 o'clock at night, and the next morning by 10, we got the note that Billy was canceled, postponed for now.
Right.
So the girls and Wyatt, all three of them at once, were in just like a huge reality check. They were there to be in Halifax, and a 6-year-old trying to explain to them, well, you've arrived, but we have to get home. Our flights may be canceled. We have to get a car and drive back. We probably can't even wait for our flight to return. Do we have access to, a place to stay? Because the contract didn't really plan for COVID. So it was like they had to learn everything all in one moment. And there were a lot of tears. We were a little nervous. What we had to do was, well, first acknowledge. We just said, you know what, spend the day, feel pain, cry if you need to. This is hard. This is really hard. And, Lila felt so disappointed for her brother. Her heart was aching for him not being able to play out his dream. There was a lot of mixed feelings. But what happened was, after a day or two, we said, well, let's make the best of being Halifax. Let's get in a car. Let's make an adventure out of it. We have this thing where we count down 3, 2, 1. We are freaking awesome. And whenever there is a moment where we're feeling really stressed out, one person or one of us will rally, and then we go, okay, and we reset. So that's really helpful if we can all do that. And it became very bonding, when someone was feeling low, that was a big part of it. We would sing our cheer. And that's really important, is to say, as a family, how do we create these bonding moments out of it? How do we look at it as this is an opportunity for us to spend more time together that we wouldn't have had otherwise,
Right.
And it was also about turning off the news, making sure that there wasn't, at first there was, I have to say, we were tuned into the news. And I was realizing that the kids were becoming extremely stressed out from that. So it was also, trying to just keep the news off, creating routine, getting back home was really a priority, just getting into our home so we felt like we were safe. And we did find out that the flights were canceled. So we end afterwards. So we were glad we hopped in that car and drove. But I think what it's done for us is realize that this is a new normal. And so what do we do with a new normal? We embrace it. We try to be freaking awesome. And we find ways. We do our gratitudes every single night right now. And what I've found was really special, and what parents are trying to figure out for their kids, is the gratitudes have shifted. And what I think is so exciting about all of this, I mean, I know people don't want to hear exciting right now, but what I think could be so beneficial right now is, it's been hard to teach our kids, especially in very in environments where they're very lucky, where they've had a lot of great schooling, where they get what they want. Sometimes there's a privilege that comes out of that. And when kids are stripped down to it being about just these fundamental things, they start to get really grateful for the simple things, and this could sort of shift the way that these kids think about just their own priorities and their own luxuries after.
Right. So you mentioned that in the evening or before bed or whatever, you're actually having a session called Gratitudes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how does that work?
Well, we go around the table and we say, what are you grateful for today? The kids list off all the things that they're grateful for. Often it's, my food and those types of things, what they can see around the table, and kind of like grace. But then they also go into things like the other day, it was just that we're getting to spend more time together, that we got to go outside, that we have cool stuff at school that we're doing in our homeschool, that we baked cookies, just like all the simple things. And it became too, the children are starting to think externally, that, Lila was like, grateful that people were practicing social distancing, and she's 6. So she hears us talking a lot about this, but she said, because it means that maybe we'll be healthier soon, or people are safe, like Auntie or Grandma and Grandpa are
Mhm.
safer when people are doing that. So she was glad that people were starting to do those things. And it's stuff that you would never have heard come out of your child's mouth a month ago, right? And so
Right.
what has evolved is a new way of shaping their narrative and their appreciation. And
Right.
I love it. It creates a lot of dialogue, which is
Yeah.
helpful too.
So Jim Moss is in charge of the homeschooling.
No,
Is that right? I mean, I know you're participating in it, but is Jim? Oh, thank God.
no.
Because I would imagine him teaching Lila how to, use a lacrosse stick, or she probably already knows how to.
It's very much a partnership because we actually have our own Jen and Jim schedule that goes up. I tend to be more in charge of designing that schedule. I say it's equitable for
Yes.
him. I don't make him do all the work, but I do make sure that there's a schedule for us, and it's usually AM schooling, PM schooling, and he right now this morning he's working on Hero. They worked on Hope this morning with their Hero
Okay.
work. They started to work on their activities around building cognitive hope and understanding what that looks like.
Yeah.
We really need it right now. He made all that material available to anyone who wants it for free right now, so that parents can access the tools at home and they can start working on talking about hope with their kids.
Okay.
So that's been a big project for him, is trying to make sure that parents right now are able to take some of that hero learning into their homes. And it helps them too as well.
Oh, yeah. So how do people get in touch? How do they link up with the hero learning?
Well, you can get in touch with at Hero Generation on Facebook. There's a page. So if anyone wants the materials, we'll share them. And I think they are available just for download there as well. And we have a few. I think we have a couple boxes of real paper, but I know that's not really safe right now. So we thought if people could download, then that would be ideal. But he's made basically all of these sort of parent resources free to anyone who wants to use them. And they're great little handy discussions that parents can have with kids about, hope, efficacy, resilience, optimism, gratitude, empathy, mindfulness. So when we're dealing with a grief situation or extreme stress situation, those are the 7 traits that really help us to
Right.
to manage through it.
So that's on Facebook, and it's Hero Generation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very kind of Jim and yourself to publicize that, because I think that's what people are also looking for, is where are the tools? What can I actually use that I can get my head around or my hands around? And that sounds like a pretty good idea. What other tools would you suggest?
Well, I mean, right now we're doing some collaborations with some folks to try to get them more support to be able to help their people. But what I would strongly suggest is there's so many great tools from physical, help, which is great, like Go Noodle for kids. And, the Y has an excellent program right now. The YMCA Cancer has an excellent program to help with physical fitness. And then they're developing more on the mental fitness, psychological fitness stuff. Any one of the Greater Good at Berkeley puts out a lot of great useful tools. Positivepsychology.org. You can also go to there's Mind. Is it Mind the Gap? Anyways, what I could do after this is put a whole host of links for where we go, and I can share them, and then you can post them up. And I'd be happy to kind of curate the best list of places to go. Action for Happiness is really good. They have both adult and youth sort of easy activities to follow. But there's tons of stuff. And I've noticed one of the best parts about this altruism thing is that so many people are putting what they would normally have a paywall, on their site. They are putting all their stuff and their content up for free, and while this is going on. And I think, again, it makes people feel better to contribute. But we all need as much as we possibly can to not only, cure the boredom, but also to, I think, make sure people feel like they, they are, working together. Like that whole
Yes.
we're all in this together happens when we're sharing ideas and promoting, other people's content.
Sharing and caring. It's become a cliche, and it gets ridiculed a bit, but oh boy, is it appropriate for these days that people can share because they care. And I go back to my hero, Mr. Rogers here, right here on my sweater. I'm wearing the red cardigan on purpose. And Fred got it. He was all about, like, come on, let's take some of these barriers down. Let's take most of the barriers down so that we can, again, as a group of people, as a community, as a culture, as a society, get better at sharing and of course the caring thing, right? Good old Fred. I'm sorry he's dead, but we've got Tom Hanks. We've got Tom Hanks.
I mean, Mr. Rogers is a genius, and he got it way before so many other people got it. And what I think is so special right now, and I am seeing this, is a return to that. We maybe not, in all cases, but you see this in those moments, in Italy where people are singing to each other across their balconies, and you see this in kids writing, in chalk, thank you for your effort, so that everyone can see it. You see that in this, these children playing the violin outside of an isolated woman's home. I mean, we see a lot of pain. We're seeing a lot of fear. But there is so much that is happening right now that should give us pause and say, maybe there's a reshaping of the sort of the feeling that we've been having.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was like, 2020 is my year. Yeah. And I made this sort of joke about 2020 being my year and now what's going on. But then I wonder, we've been feeling so hopeless for many years because of sort of people's ethical behavior. And it's been bothering us. There's a cognitive dissonance between, what someone's doing, and we're like, why are you doing that? It feels so wrong. My heart doesn't accept that. But maybe what this will do is create some sort of a shift in us thinking about the world and how global we are and how connected we are. And maybe 2020 will change us in a way that makes us experience post-traumatic growth as opposed to post-traumatic stress. That's what I'm seeing. I'm hopeful for.
Yes, and post-traumatic growth, is that what I just heard?
Yes, yeah, it's people, there's a portion of people that do experience post-traumatic stress, obviously, and a lot of that is because they do have, anxiety. There's things that they are, chemically trying to battle, but in general, people are extremely hopeful. Humanity is very hopeful. It is how we've, lasted this long. It's part of our genetic makeup. And so I think what is very important for us to understand is we can't lose that. And to experience post-traumatic growth is that right now, if we can develop our psychological fitness, so work out our gratitude, work out our empathy, work out our kindness, for Fred. If we work out these muscles in our brain, we don't let those atrophy, and we go at it even harder. Like, think of this as a marathon, training for a marathon. Let's train our psychological fitness like we were training for a marathon, and then we will have post-traumatic growth at the end of this, because we will have felt forward momentum. We will have felt like we are, we've done something with it. We feel like we've accomplished something out of a really extremely challenging time, which makes us feel at the end so much more victorious. And so I think if we can work on psychological fitness, like I said, like we're, running for a marathon or training for a marathon, we will feel like, Olympians at the end of all of this.
Yeah. Wow. Jennifer, it has been so uplifting to chat with you today. And I thank you again for all of us for spending some time and investing your approach is the approach we need. I'm building a statue to Jennifer Moss. As soon as it snows, I'm going out there, and I know what my snowman's going to look like. It's going to be my Jennifer Moss snowman.
The snowman. I think that's about right, because it'll melt in the spring, which is appropriate.
But anyway, and thank you for volunteering to supply us with a list of suggested links and things, and to Jim as well for opening up, the hero generation, because this is stuff that we need, and we do have to start to think and do differently. There is a new normal. We can't expect to go back.
No, this is
no.
But
you know what? There's a lot of stuff in our rearview mirror that we don't need. Right?
Like we're pruning, like how your brain prunes things that it doesn't use or need. We're pruning some of the things that we don't need anymore, and it only makes us more optimized. So
yes,
it's gonna good pruning all that other behavior, and we'll be champions out of this. We'll get through it.
We go. The hero perspective, the champion perspective. We are there. Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks to the folks that have tuned in. We'll be making this available as a recording as well. But have a super day. Think differently. Do differently. Woo!
We got it, Alan.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Bye.